But let's have some fun. Ladies and gentlemen, Lee Lucas.
Thank you very much, John. What a privilege to be here and do this.
Let me find my notes here, Lee.
There's going to be questions, I see it coming.
Okay. Let's start with the story of how you ended up here tonight. How did your film end up back in Breckenridge?
Well, I first got here in '69. Excuse my voice. But it was quite an experience to move to Breckenridge. And first of all the people that have shown up here are the ones that made Breckenridge what it is today. And I thank you very much. John, I also thank you because what you've done for this community is unbelievable. CJ,
Tell me about who is responsible for bringing your films here.
well, years ago, I don't know how many of you remember, there was a bar here that moved to Vail in 1970 or 71, and his name was Slope. It was right here on Main Street. They showed ski movies, and they had couches where you could lay back in comfortable chairs and whatnot. And about that time, Jim Vaughn came along, and he was ready to open up a depot bar and grill. How many people ever went there? Well, the grill went away real quick, but Jim Vaughn's in the audience out there. I can't see him, but him and George Sedlak put together the depot. And I went into Jim and said, Jim, it's a good idea. Why don't we start showing ski movies? So we did. But first there were movies that during up until 74, 75, some of which I was in. If you remember the old humping reindeer headband that I had, it appeared in quite a few different shows, freestyle shows. But Jim Vaughn is the person that helped me get started, and we would go film it, we would advertise it, and then here we'd go. Everybody started coming to see themselves ski. That evolved from one thing to another, and the next thing we had a TV station, ZLTV. And that was a big jump from the depot. About the same time, Jim was leaving town, he was closing the depot, and so the TV, everybody could watch it on TV. We had video cameras then. Instead of the old Super 8 movies and the 16 millimeter we were using for some of this, most of this, it was just fun. But the video came with another problem. The weight. Back then, video cameras were big, bulky if they took a good picture. So, running around with a camera that weighed 15 pounds wasn't anything, but then you had a 35-pound battery belt on. Then you had a tripod, and on top of that, you had a 3/4-inch recorder that weighed 30 pounds. So it was a challenge, but it was something we were able to do, and we kept going. But it's really been a transition, John, of the people in Breckenridge that made it possible by wanting to watch themselves ski like Pub and everyone else. I've met and reconnected with so many people tonight. It's just what an honor and a pleasure to do that.
Lee, I just want to point out what he just said about all the gear he had to carry. He had a big surveyor's tripod, a 30-pound recorder, a huge battery pack, and sometimes more. And now if I want to take a video, I just push a button. It's kind of crazy to think about.
Oh God,
the days watching you ski around.
Skiing backwards with all that stuff, and breaking something was quite a chore. I can tell you that much. It was fun.
So, there's a couple people we need to recognize again, I think, that came out to visit you in Florida and talked you into hauling a bunch of your film back here so that Breck History could digitize it and kind of pave the way for this show tonight. So tell me about Robin and Patty.
Well, Robin and Patty they're right here in front of us. I can't see them, but I know they're there.
Stand up, Robin.
Stand up, Robin. We're going to ask everybody Well, those of you who don't know, I moved to Florida after I left here in '92. I had no choice. I'd had a few back surgeries that really set me back for a while, but I bounced pretty good like a rubber ball, and I always ended up on 2 feet and was able to run away and keep going. We had a hurricane hit Florida. Before that, they came out and went fishing with me. That's what I do. I entertain, tap dance, tell stories, and catch your dinner. So they came out, and then we had the hurricane. Robin decided how much of that footage is okay that you've got. I know you've got a lot of video footage. You saw a lot of it tonight. Since Robin came out, and he helped me pack up everything and ship it back to Breckenridge. He gave it to Breckenridge History. They gave it to the film, and it just evolved into what you saw tonight. But the good news is I found another box full of videotape that we can do another show with more skiing and more other things that 3/4 of this audience was involved with and in. How many, can we see a show of hands? How many people saw their names and the credits, John?
You know, we introduced Robin and Patty. I think this is a good time. We talked about people from Breckenridge Film, Breck Creative, Breck History, and one person that I need to see stand up out there that neither Lee or I have met yet, and I was told she was here, was the editor of this footage, Caitlin Neely. Is Caitlin here? Where is she? There, she's waving all the way in the back. Yeah, let's hear it.
I've never met you, so hello. Thank you. And thank you also for leading the first part of that Breckenridge intro at the beginning with Jim Selfman's music. That was a project that I worked on for the Photoshop. And we put it on everybody's videotape that bought a videotape from the Photoshop back then. We filmed your family skiing or whatever, and that would appear at the beginning of your videotape. But that was one of my special things with Jim Selfman.
Now I think we need to see who's here. So what we're going to do, I'd like George Sedlak and Jim Vaughn to stand up from the depot.
Can we turn the lights up a little bit? Is that okay?
Scott Rawls is out there. Scott Rawls.
Scott Rawls, right there.
And he was.
Is that his lovely mother sitting next to him? Hello.
There's one person here that I don't think appeared in the movie, but I mentioned him earlier. His name is Trigby. Trigby's
right here. Trigby, where are you, folks? I am so honored that Trigby came tonight. I apologize, but the footage that I had of Trigby skiing way back when was destroyed in the hurricane, and Robin Theobald came and saved the tapes that we could have transferred and shipped them back here and got them to do it. I'm not sure what he had to do that, but thank you very much again, Ronald.
I don't know if Sigurd is here tonight, but is Signa or any of Sigurd's family here? I don't think so. Next one I want to do, if you saw your name in this movie, stand up. Go on. I know there's not to be out there. Steve-O, you were in there, come on. It's too hard for me to stand up and make this chair is too low. Now, if you even saw yourself in the movie, I know Sir Stillwell was in it, lots of people who weren't named. Now stand up the people who saw themselves in the movie. There we go. And it's kind of feeling like an inside joke here. If there are any people from out of town here who have no idea what's going on, I hope you had a really good time. And I apologize for the skier's toast. Hang on, please.
No, Lucas!
Okay. Next question that Larissa was interested in is why exactly, I mean, you talked about you came to Breckenridge in '69, but what exactly steered you to Breckenridge? Was it just the first place you came, or what made you come to Breckenridge?
I was living in Denver and moved from Europe. I've been skiing in Europe for 3 years, 3 winters. That's where I learned how to ski. And I drove up here one day, and I didn't have a lot of money, but I had a fancy car that I wasn't driving that day. I had a Volkswagen van. Came into town, I loved the look of the town. I was standing in line to buy a ticket, and a gentleman behind me asked me a question. He said, "Can you ski?" I looked at him and I said, "Well, I can ski a little bit, sir." It was Harry Long Sr. If you remember Harry, I'm sure Trinity knows who I'm talking about. Well, he said, "Put that man's ticket on my tab." I had no idea who he was. So I went skiing with him. He introduced me to a lot of people, and I said, "I could live here." And a month later, that same November, at the end of November, I moved here full-time and got a job doing different things, but basically, as the winter progressed, I went to every ski area around here. Copper Mountain, Keystone, the Breckenridge. And they said it would be okay for me to come and bring people to do a tour of their mountain and teach them a little bit of freestyle. And that's how I ended up in Breckenridge. Ski the Summit is what it was called. And they ended up using that as their lead-in for Ski the Summit.
I want to hear a little bit of a story. You saw the skateboarding sequence. All three of those guys are here tonight. Rick the Pump, Chris Anderson, and Jim Bowden is here tonight. There's Jim. There's Jim. And if you didn't recognize the motorcycle that came up behind him, that was a state patrolman. Passing this tractor trailer was totally unscripted, and the state patrolman was totally unscripted. And it's one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen, and it's such an iconic part of Lee's stuff. Thanks for being here, Jim. Will you tell us a little bit about that photo shoot?
I'm sorry.
Tell us a little bit about the photo shoot up on Woodland Pass.
Oh, that was fun. That was a lot of fun going up to the top of the pass up there. And then we had an old Rambler station wagon. Somebody could probably tell me who owned it. I don't remember whose it was in town. But we put a couple of pieces of plywood in the back, 3/4 inch, and screwed them down into the metal in the back of the Rambler. They were sticking out about 3 feet. So I had the camera down here while I was shooting him. And we actually kind of staged the truck pass. He said, "I can pass a semi." I said, what? You can pass a what? I can pass a semi. They're coming down, and there's a whole bunch of them coming down every day. I said, okay. So we set up on the ridge and shot that part, and then I got in the Rambler station wagon. I lost all the skin off of both knuckles holding the camera. And luckily I had people in the back of the Rambler holding onto the video recorder and whatnot. And we did most of it in video, but we did a large portion in 16 millimeter.
Jim, it's great to see you. It's been quite a while. If you have time, stop by Fatty's when the show's over. We can talk for a while. All right, the next thing that when I was watching it, I knew what was going on. But when it first started showing up here, I realized when Lee was skiing down the rocks at Rocky Point on Boreas Pass, you couldn't really tell that it wasn't snow at the beginning. He was skiing down on shaly rocks. And I think that got a big reaction from the crowd. And I do want to say that John Tomaska, who's no longer with us, appeared in the film, but also shot that footage for Lee up on Rocky Point and shot a lot of the footage. But it was great to see JT skiing with the kite on his back. But tell us a little bit about that trip up Rocky Point to go rock skiing.
Well, sitting around one day during the summer, I was bored. I called John up and said, John, he was a good cameraman. He was a good person. He was also the coach for the junior racing team here in Breckenridge. And he came up to the house and I said, I've got an idea. He said, what? I said, we need to go up Boreas Pass and do some skiing. He said, what? There's no snow. I said, that's the idea. So away we went, and we made 2 runs, actually 3 runs, to put that together, what you saw tonight. And it was all rock. It was definitely skiing rock. And I was listening to ZZ Top at the time.
I'm just going to have one more question for Lee, but I do want to again thank Tamara and Recreate, Caitlin and Caitlin from Breck Film, Larissa and Chris Ann from Breck History.
Yes.
This has been an incredible night. It's a little crazy to think those kids that were sitting on Marty's porch in that commercial, that was 40 years ago, and those 8 and 10-year-old kids are now in their 40s or probably in their 50s. It's crazy to think about. But Lee, I guess the last thing is that now your footage is officially part of Breckenridge history. And how do you feel about that? And what does it mean to you?
It's overwhelming, actually, John, to be invited to come back here and be able to help put this together and show it. I got it, I know. I see the car going, okay, hurry this up. But how do I feel about it? It's overwhelming seeing so many people that were part of my life for so long. And it meant so much to me back then, and they still do, to reunite with them here tonight. It's really a pleasure. I thank you all. And to have Mr. Trinity Bogey attend, he is my hero. Trinity is my hero. Right there. 2 place games, and I can still get it. Thank you all. And CJ, this man is one to help.